On the last months, few games have generated as much buzz as The Witcher 3, a game that promises to set the next frontier on open world exploration and that has received a shower of praise, lots of it centered around its outstanding graphics and design, with hundreds of people all over the internet showing us how the game looks with the very best hardware available. But what you're about to see is the entire opposite, the game pushed to its lowest limits. Why? Because this is the LowSpecGamer, where stuff just appears in front of us and The Witcher 3 is a cel-shaded game. So forget about fancy hairworks and grass and high definition resolutions, because no matter what, we are going to make this game run.
Your fairy tale, your rules.
While picking apart the game's configuration files, I saw several lines that led me to believe the game has some sort of auto preset selection based on your video card. My card is obviously not on the list. What I ended up with is something that looks like the medium preset. Most elements on post-processing are on or in medium, while graphics menu has the resolution on Full HD, with some elements on medium, some on high, and some are low. It is very obvious that this is not going to go well for my computer, but I'm going to run it for the sake of reference. Honestly, I am surprised this is over 5 frames per second. Almost as bad as I expected. Let's see how low does the game normally allows us to go. This is not a game like Tomb Raider, where putting everything into low results in a game that looks like something out of a PlayStation 2. Let me show you. We're going to put everything in post-processing to the lowest or off, and the same for the graphics menu. The lowest resolution allowed by the game's menu is 1024 by 768, so we're going to go for that and everything into low. Let's see what that did. Oh well, apart from the really accurate resolution, there is definitely less detail, but it still looks way better from what you will expect from a game in low. Just walking around, the maximum I ever saw was 15 frames per second, which is not quite playable. So, here is where it gets interesting. This game has a lot of configuration files and plenty of hidden options. The first thing we're going to do is to install the Witcher 3 Hunter config. The link is in the description. This brilliant program is a graphical interface for most of the options on the configuration files, making it much easier to edit, experiment, and most importantly, back up your custom configurations. To install it, download the zip file, extract it, and copy the contents to your Witcher 3 install directory. For Steam users, this is located on Program Files 86, Steam, Steam Apps, Common, The Witcher 3. Paste it here and merge or replace files if necessary. Now you only need to double click on the executable and open the config program. Before anything, make sure to back up your current configuration. Some of these options can easily break the game. Now, I have been screwing around with each and every one of these options and measuring the results. Here are some of the good ones. Go into the rendering tab and deactivate all effects under post-processing, rain, fog, and so on. Next, we have two sliders that control how many trees are rendered on your view and the density of the grass. Reducing these both can have a very important impact on your performance. Since mine is a case of desperation, I am going to force both all the way down. You will see the extreme effect this has very soon. Now, these three next sliders control the downscale factor for the textures. If you increase them to the maximum, you can get texture quality that is way under what the low option allows the game to have, so we're going to do just that. These two shadow size parameters can be used to control the quality of the shadows, so I have seen an overall improvement in performance by taking them as down as they go. Now, these two max texture size values can be taken down to further decrease the quality of the textures to unthinkable levels. However, in my experience, it did not improve the game's frame rate and it led to a lot of loading bugs, especially when moving around the world. But if you're feeling adventurous, you can lower them and enjoy how amusing the game looks on its really lowest possible quality. Well, isn't that something? This slider over here controls the chance that decals such as particles and blood are shown at the distance, so I'm going to turn it off. And I'm going to put the maximum number of decals to 0. Now these three values over here, Cascade Shadow Map, Max Cascade Count and Max Terrain Shadow Atlas Count, control shadow quality, so I'm going to put them all the way down. As I said, I did measurements for each one of these individually, and these guys, along with the texture downscaling, are some of the biggest players in squeezing performance out of the game. If your game is almost running and you don't want to lower the textures, these guys over here are a very good choice. This slider is for the quality of water, so I'm going to turn it down. And finally, this slider over here also controls rendering of grass and trees. They provide some very small gains in performance, but along with the sliders up there for grass and foliage, they come with the cost of vegetation rendering in a very odd way, so turn it off if you're desperate. And just like that, The Witcher 3 is suddenly a cel-shaded game. This is truly how the game looks when you push it to almost its lowest. Believe it or not, it can get worse. As you can see, now the frame rate goes between 18 and 22, which some might consider playable, and is a world of difference over the 15 we were getting before. Notice how all plants are now rendered only as we get closer. This is controlled by the grass and foliage sliders that I mentioned before, and this is how it looks when it's all the way down. Almost playable, I will say, but notice also how shadows render in a smart circle around me? Well, time to tackle that, because there's still a couple of things we can do to push the game even further. The config program simplifies editing most of the lines on the configuration files, but there are some small things here and there that, as of today, I have not seen reflected on the interface and can only be modified manually, and we can use a couple of those to squeeze more performance out of the game. Go to the main configuration file, located at Documents, The Witcher 3. The file we're looking for is called User. Open it in Notepad. First thing, the resolution. As I have shown you before, the lowest resolution allowed in-game is 1024 by 768. But we can force the game to go even lower by changing this line over here to 800 by 600. Yep, say goodbye to HD resolution, we're not pulling any punches today. Also, set full screen mode to 1. This will make the game run on windowed borderless mode. Running the game on windowed mode is a common tip for getting performance on any game, but I have never mentioned it before because in my measurements it usually does not change a thing. This time's different. While playing on the lowest resolution, I saw a big difference on borderless mode, like 4 or 5 frames per second difference. You can also toggle borderless mode from the game, but hey, we already have the file open. Next, put this line, allowed lights shadow time to 0. Max allow lights shadow to 0. Cascade shadow distance scale 2 and cascade shadow distance scale 3 both to 0. Max terrain shadow atlas count 0. Cascade shadow map size, well, this one was on the configuration program, but it did not allow us to put it to 0. Here we can. Cascade shadow distance scale 0 and cascade shadow distance scale 1 both to 0 as well. And finally, foliage shadow distance scale to 0. Well, wasn't that a mouthful? All done. It took a lot of trial and error, but these options actually do something really odd to shadows. It will force them to almost completely disappear, except for a very narrow space right next to your character. Let me show you the results. As you can see, shadows are now limited to a small space next to your character, almost gone. Playing on these extreme conditions allow the game to perform around 25 frames per second and in many occasions around 30. I never saw it drop under 20. Not bad for a computer that cannot get beyond 7 in a normal preset. I have been trying this configuration in several parts of the game and it maintains a playable frame rate, so I will say the extreme measures have paid off. However, Witcher 3 is a very new game. The documentation for all the configuration parameters is scarce, and the more I dig, the more interesting things I uncover. Besides, modders have barely started digging their teeth into the game, so plenty of new and interesting ways of improving performance are bound to show up. So, keep your eyes open. And if you saw me doing anything wrong, or if you know any performance related mods for this guy, let me know on comments, Twitter or Reddit. I read everything. Oh, and be sure to run your own experiments. Just remember to back up your configuration before trying anything. Some of the most obscure values can lead to some rather unexpected results. I do not even know what is happening anymore.